Imagine a leader who openly admitted making hundreds of errors. Someone who went through a great interior crisis, was even exiled by his own order, yet somehow rises to become, well, one of the most talked about figures globally.
Yeah, it's quite a story, not your typical path to the top.
Exactly. It's the journey of Jorge Mario Bergoglio, Pope Francis now, of course. And we're going to dive deep into what shaped him, his leadership, his vision. You shared some material that really promises to unpack this complex figure.
That's the plan. We're looking at a book today that tries to put both the man, Bergoglio, and the Pope, Francis, into context. It explains how this figure, who seemed to sort of appear out of nowhere for many people, came to lead the Catholic Church at such a critical time. The material we've got suggests the book does a good job of providing that context, untangling some competing narratives.
So our mission here is to pull out the key leadership ideas, maybe the most powerful transformation principles from his life, and really get into why understanding his journey matters, for your head and maybe even your heart.
Sounds good. Where should we start? The leadership stuff.
Yeah, let's start there.
Okay.
One thing that jumps out is that admission of mistakes you mentioned. The book quotes him from 2010 saying he made hundreds of errors. And it talks about those errors, changes, that great interior crises in Cordoba.
Right.
Showing how he was reshaped and revitalized. What's your first take on that kind of vulnerability from someone in his position?
Well, it's interesting how the book frames it, isn't it? It says, far from seeing the changes Francis has made in his life as a sign of weakness, this book portrays them as a sign of strength.
Okay, so mistakes aren't liabilities necessarily?
Not according to this view. It's about learning. He has learned from his mistakes and from experience. That's presented as the core of his strength, his ability to adapt and grow.
That's a powerful reframe. And it kind of connects to another point. The book makes action speaking louder than words.
Ah, yes. The St. Francis connection.
Exactly. It says, Francis understands, as did his 13th century namesake from Assisi, that actions speak more eloquently than words, delivering his message about change.
And you see that, right? The examples are striking. Washing the feet of inmates.
Including women. A Muslim person.
Yeah.
Which apparently went against Vatican rules at the time.
Precisely. It sends a very different message than just, issuing a statement about inclusivity.
And publicly confessing his own sins, too.
Okay.
It adds a layer of authenticity, doesn't it?
It does. These aren't just symbolic. They feel like lived values, tangible expressions of what he believes.
Okay, so learning from mistakes, actions over words. What else? The book gets into his connection with popular devotion, ordinary people.
Yeah, that's a big theme. There's a quote, "To him, the strength of Catholicism is in the way simple people live their faith." And it gives examples from his time in Buenos Aires, visiting slums, drinking tea with people.
He called El Shaban the dude.
Right, which suggests a certain closeness and approachability you might not expect. This connection to grassroots faith seems really fundamental.
So how did that influence his leadership, do you think, that closeness?
Well, the book suggests it gave him a real grounding and understanding of people's actual lives and faith, not just theological abstractions. It likely shapes his priorities, focusing on the marginalized, wanting a church connected to real life.
Makes sense. But alongside that empathy, the book also talks about courage. Standing by principles, even with opposition.
Yes, it points to that too. Throughout his career, Bergoglio has shown significant courage. It mentions a specific bold tactic during the Dirty War.
The one about asking a priest to feign illness to get access to the Chunta leader?
That's the one. Now, that period is complex, lots of different views on his actions then.
Sure.
But the book uses it as an example of risk-taking based on conscience. And later, his push for interfaith dialogue, despite internal pushback, seems to fit that pattern too.
So it's this blend of empathy and, well, toughness when needed.
Seems to be the picture painted here. Balancing connection with conviction.
And the last leadership point, this is this desire for a less centralized church.
Ah, yes. Decentralization. He's quoted saying he needs to think about a conversion of the papacy itself.
A conversion of the papacy?
Yeah.
Wow.
He says, "It is my duty as the Bishop of Rome to be open to suggestions which can help make the exercise of my ministry more faithful to what Christ intended."
So what does that mean in practice? More power to local churches?
That seems to be the implication. A leadership style that values broader input, adapting to local needs, less top-down control. A pretty significant shift, potentially.
Okay, so those are some key leadership ideas. Now, let's shift to the transformation principles. This feels really personal. Starting with humility.
The book frames his radical humility, paying his own hotel bill.
which it called signaling a mighty blow to the heart of the clerical privilege.
Right. It suggests this wasn't just his personality, but maybe a deliberate technique, a way to counteract his own past tendencies towards being rigid, authoritarian, and egotistical.
So using humility as a tool for self-correction,
Hmm.
that's fascinating.
It is. It suggests humility can be cultivated, practiced actively to foster change in oneself and maybe an institution.
It really makes you pause and think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Where in your own life, maybe your leadership could consciously practicing a bit more humility shift something. Maybe address a rigid spot.
It's a good question.
Like, what's one small thing you could try today? Maybe just truly listening in a meeting before jumping in.
Yeah.
Or giving credit first. What might happen?
Building on that humility is his focus on dialogue and encounter.
Right. He apparently told bishops at a synod, speak out. Nobody should say, I can't say this or they will think this of me. Encouraging that open, honest speech parrhesia.
Yeah, pushing for genuine communication, not just within the hierarchy, but maybe across the board. Trying to break down those barriers of fear or formality.
Have you ever held back in a group? Not said what you really thought. What stopped you? And looking back, how might more open dialogue have changed things?
We've all been there, I think.
Maybe the challenge is in your next conversation. Try listening with real openness, but also share your own view respectfully, even if it feels a bit risky.
Another principle the book highlights is prioritizing people over abstract ideas.
The realities are greater than ideas line.
Exactly. His pastoral pragmatism. Ideas should serve reality, serve people. The example given is telling priests to, rent a garage if needed to reach people where they are.
Even if fewer people show up than in a traditional church service.
That seems to be the point. Focus on connection and need, not just maintaining structures or hitting metrics based on old ideas.
Can you think of a time when sticking too rigidly to a plan or an idea got in the way, blocked a good outcome?
Probably.
How could focusing more on the people involved, their actual situation, have led somewhere better? Maybe next time you're working on something, consciously ask, how is this actually serving the people it's meant for? And be ready to adjust.
Then there's discernment. That Jesuit practice.
Which isn't just thinking, right? It's more involved.
Yeah, the book describes it as involving reflection, prayer, talking, listening, and debate. A whole process. His instructions to the synod, speak boldly, listen humbly, are called classic Ignatian instruments of discernment.
Structured ways to think and talk things through, basically.
Pretty much. A way to approach big decisions thoughtfully, incorporating different elements and perspectives.
So if you're facing a big decision, how could you build in some of that? More reflection time, actively seeking out different viewpoints, maybe even just pausing today when facing a challenge, taking a quiet moment before acting, asking who else might have insight.
Simple steps, but potentially powerful.
And finally, this idea of the scandal of normality. What's that about?
It refers to his effort to sort of demystify the papacy, lower the perceived status of papal statements, his preference for interviews, off-the-cuff remarks.
Over formal pronouncements.
Yeah, aiming for a sense of, normality, trying to make the papacy seem less remote, less wrapped in layers of formality.
Interesting. Where do you see formality or status creating maybe unnecessary barriers in your own world? Work, life.
Good question.
Could embracing a bit more normality, being more informal, relatable, actually improve connection and communication? Maybe next time you interact with someone seen as important or in authority, focus on finding that relatable human level.
So we've covered leadership, transformation. Why does the book argue we should engage with this story with both mind and heart?
Well, first off, it's about understanding a really complex figure who's leading a huge global institution during a, pretty critical time.
Right. The book aims to explain the mystery of this man who seems to have come from nowhere and navigate all the different takes on him. It provides crucial context for understanding shifts in the religious and even social landscape.
And beyond just understanding him, you're witnessing a story of transformation, aren't you? Both personal and institutional.
Definitely. His journey, with all the admitted mistakes and changes, is a powerful case study in personal growth. The book says his changes are a sign of strength.
And he wants the church to change, too. So it offers insights into how incredibly large, tradition-bound institutions might actually transform or at least face the challenges of trying to.
Then there's the whole interplay of faith, politics, social justice. The book doesn't shy away from his complicated history in Argentina, the dirty war, liberation theology,
Right.
and connects it to his actions and focus as Pope. It forces you to think about how these things connect, how faith plays out in the real, often messy world of politics and the fight for justice.
And you really see the power of that humility and connection we talked about. His focus on empathy, on the marginalized, embracing the mud of the slums, as the book puts it.
Yeah, it challenges traditional ideas about power, doesn't it? It suggests a different kind of influence, one rooted in genuine human connection, that scandal of normality.
It's a different model.
Yeah,
And lastly, the book offers lessons in just navigating division and resistance.
that's a key point. His experience leading a deeply divided Jesuit province back in the day and then facing internal opposition to his reforms as Pope.
It details those struggles.
It does. It shows the reality of trying to lead change when not everyone is on board.
Hmm.
So there are lessons there about dialogue, conflict, persistence in the face of pushback.
Okay. So we've really dug into this. You've glimpsed the, let's say, unconventional path of a leader who learned from stumbles, puts people first, isn't afraid to shake things up a bit. And this deep dive, it's not just about understanding a pope, right? It's about pulling out principles you can actually use in your own leadership, your own life, your own transformations.
But this is just scratching the surface, really.
Oh, absolutely. This is the trailhead. There's a whole landscape of insights in the full story, the full book. So don't just, passively listen to this. Go do something.
What do you mean?
I mean, pick up this book, read it with open eyes, an open mind, maybe an open heart too. Get the unvarnished truth behind the headlines. That's where the real aha moments are waiting for you. Don't just think about it, dig in.